Do you have a sweet tooth? Are you tired of being controlled by it? Do you feel like it's always in charge? Do you want to find a healthier way? Do you wish you could find a healthier way to satisfy it so it doesn't like control you and make you eat things that you know aren't good for you? You're in luck because today I'm going to share some tips and suggestions to help you tame the sugar beast. Tame that sugar beast. Okay. And I'm going to go over some different ways you can do this. And I'm also going to cover like the different sort of pros and cons of different natural sweeteners, which are healthier. Some of them are, some of them not so much. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I'm also going to share some alternative ingredients that you may not have considered that can sort of help trick your brain and your taste buds, into having that experience of sweetness without all the added sugar, which is causing damage to your body. So my name is Donya Fahmy, and I'm the CEO and Alchemist-in-Chief of Sustainable Health Solutions, Inc. and Dropwise Essentials. I'm also a natural health and lifestyle expert, and how I got to become something of an expert stemmed from my 20-year healing journey, where I was able to heal myself from over 2 decades of multiple chronic health problems, all kinds of different things that doctors just weren't able to help me with. And I was able to figure out how to do this on my own. It was a long, bumpy journey, and in some ways it still is. But one of the main things I did when I got started was to cut way back on my sugar as a first step in cleaning up my diet. And it's made such a huge difference for me that I'm really passionate about it. And one of the other things I've been really passionate about over the years is learning how to make food and eat food that's created with healthy ingredients and really enjoy it and get into it. It's kind of a fun, cool thing for me to find healthy ingredients to swap in and exchange for non-healthy ingredients in traditional recipes and even in kind of new concoctions. I'm a little bit of a alchemist in the kitchen too, as you might imagine. So anyway, I'm really passionate about sharing that with you because it's been a fun thing for me, and I think it can be a fun thing for people. People often feel like when you have to give up something that you like sugar or sweets or food that you're sort of somewhat attached to, that it's very difficult and challenging, and it means you're going to have to settle for, being happy with eating celery and carrots and things like that. So it doesn't have to be like that, okay? So I'm going to turn you on to some ideas about how to do this, and I'm going to challenge you to give it a try, okay? It all starts with breaking your taste addiction to overly sweet and sugary things, okay? Because those are usually the ones that are made with processed sugars, and processed sugars are the ones that are the most harmful and damaging to your body. So it's kind of a vicious cycle. And so this is the whole idea behind this is to start scaling back on your sugar consumption, but also substituting healthier alternatives. So you bring in more beneficial ingredients into the mix while continuing to be able to enjoy, to a certain extent, some sweets and such. So there's really 2 approaches, 2 ways you can go about it. You can go cold turkey, or you can do it gradually. Okay. So of course with cold turkey, it's really the best and the fastest way to break a taste addiction, but you have to be able to do it for an extended period of time. So typically you'd want to do it for at least 2 or 3 weeks, possibly a month or more. So you have to basically take a vow and stick to it. And so that could be a little challenging, but one thing you can do to help you get through it is actually do a liver cleanse at the same time, because with a liver cleanse, you're absolutely not allowed to touch any sugar. And so that's might help you psychologically to get through it. The other way is to do it gradually, and you start by eliminating foods with hidden sugar or replacing them with healthier alternatives, and then experimenting with different natural, healthier sweeteners to find the right mix for you without all the added sugar. So keeping, again, the ultimate goal in mind is to reduce the sugar consumption. Now, doing it gradually might seem like the easier way to go, but I actually think it's harder because you have to have a lot of discipline to stick with it, right? And so whichever way you decide, the first step is mental preparation, right? I mean, let's face it, you're going to be making it's a lifestyle change, right? And whether it sticks or not, and whether you stick with it in the long haul, it's still a change that you have to make from what you're used to. So you really have to dial the mindset in properly in order to be able to do it. Now, each and every one of you is different. And so you have to know yourself to know what's going to work best for you to get to that right mindset in order to move forward with it. So I think the first thing you need to do once you've decided whether you're going to go cold turkey or take a gradual approach is decide on a goal that excites you and juices you, juices you into wanting to do this. It makes you want to do it. Okay. So each one of you, it's going to be something different. Maybe it's losing some weight. Maybe I want to just lose 10 or 20 pounds to start. Some of you may want to lose more weight, but if you start with a more doable goal, like 10 or 20 pounds, maybe that will excite you, lose the weight, fit into, this outfit, a special outfit, or get ready for a special occasion and look your best. That's one type of goal. Another one might be you just want to get your energy and your clarity back. You've been in a little bit of a brain fog, you're having a hard time, and you just really appreciate being able to be more clear and productive and have a little bit of energy for yourself. That's another goal. It could be that you want to be a better role model for your kids or your grandkids. That's a noble goal, and it may or may not excite you. I don't know. And then the other one could be just proving to yourself that you can do it. Some of us have a little bit of that drive, and they're like, oh no, I can do this. I can do this. I'm going to show it. I'm going to show everyone I can do this. So that's one way. Now, if you've watched my previous sessions on sugar, you know how damaging it is to your body. So if you're currently struggling with any kind of health problem, or you're just not feeling so hot most days, whatever the underlying cause, then maybe just knowing that if you don't make this change, things will just continue to get worse, okay? And maybe that should be motivation enough. Now, whatever works for you, do it. Go out on a limb, I say. Pretend that if you do this, the universe is somehow going to reward you with like $1 million. Hey, who's with me here? Who among you would do this if you knew you would or could win $1 million or a substantial financial reward? Comment with the word prize in the comments below if this is you. As far as I'm concerned, just knowing that making this change means you won't keep throwing your hormones out of whack and eventually end up a diabetic should really be a strong enough incentive, in my humble opinion. And as the saying goes, your mileage may vary. So the flip side of mental preparation is identifying the real reason that you do it, okay? So, that's going to require some deep inquiry and some soul searching. You see, on a subconscious level, or maybe even an unconscious level, you are currently deriving a benefit of some sort from indulging in sweets or carbs, even though you know it's bad for you, right? Maybe indulging like that connects you with some positive childhood memories that you had of being rewarded with ice cream, with sweets, either for behaving well, doing something good, achieving something important, or just the opportunity or chance to share a special moment with a beloved parent or a revered relative or guardian, right? Without getting too Freudian here, though, I'm just giving you an example of how a lot of times we derive a hidden benefit from an unhealthy habit. And in this case, it would be eating sweets or unhealthy foods. Only you can cover and address the stumbling block. And you may need to get some coaching or other support to do it if you're not really motivated enough to stick to it, but with just your goal alone. So type the word goal in the comments if you have one and it will excite you enough to take on a challenge like this and stick with it. And if you're willing, share with us what that goal is. Now, mental preparation is just the first step, okay? Step number 2 is track what you eat, okay? And it reminds me of a saying, whatever can be measured can be managed. And I think I got that off of a brochure for an accountant or a financial manager for many, many years ago, probably like 20 years ago, but it just kind of stuck in my craw because if you think about it, this applies to your eating habits as well, right? If you want to change it, you got to figure out what you're doing first and measure it in order to figure out what has to be changed and then to measure how the change is working for you or not. Now, at one point in time, I was working with a personal trainer who insisted I keep a food journal. I really didn't want to do it because I was pretty convinced that I didn't need to. I'm a pretty healthy eater after all these years, everything they've done. And of course, surprise, surprise, I didn't feel like I had the time to do it. So I did it very reluctantly, and I did it for a couple of months. We worked together for a couple of months, and he was able to point out to me things that I wasn't seeing, habits that I was taking for granted or not paying attention to that were interfering with my own weight loss efforts and my own efforts to get fit. And so obviously when I stopped working with him, I stopped doing it because I hadn't really wanted to do it in the first place. But Doing it actually helped me to become keenly aware of some of my bad habits that I was taking for granted or just assuming it was no big deal, right? So as a result of having that awareness, I was actually able to break some of those habits on my own relatively easily, without too much difficulty, just from being aware of it. So I honestly believe that keeping a journal of some sort can be super helpful during a process like this. And it's why it's one of the things we do in my healthy eating course. It's entirely up to you, of course, how much information you want to include. I recommend that you track everything that you eat, the time of day that you ate it, how you felt when you ate it. So I'm not talking about how you felt emotionally, although you may want to include that in there. I would say track how you feel emotionally, but also pay attention to how you feel physically or physiologically, right? Because there are clues there. And I also feel it's valuable to start every day by noting how you feel when you first wake up and you get out of bed. Not the minute you wake up, but like after you've been up and about for 10, 15 minutes. Make note of how you feel, and then also make note of how you feel at the end of the day, right before you're ready to go to bed. I think all of these things are really valuable to track. And as I said, I think the value of doing this is just in creating awareness about things that we do when we're in autopilot mode. Who knows what I'm talking about here? Type the word autopilot in the comments below if and when it comes to eating in general and sugar in particular, you often feel like you're kind of operating on an autopilot mode. Keeping a journal can help you identify emotional triggers that drive you to reach for an unhealthy snack. And that may also be another way to uncover the hidden benefit that I mentioned earlier. The whole point of it is to help you see things about yourself that you aren't able, for whatever reason, you're not able or willing to see on your own. And the added benefit is that it helps you finally start to understand how the foods you eat really make you feel. Okay, Ken, mostly I'm talking about physically and physiologically, like how does it make your body feel? How does it affect your energy? And then how does it affect you emotionally and psychologically? But what I'm really pushing you to do here is pay attention to how it's making you feel physically, because those are the clues right there as to what's helping you and what's harming you, right? So, you could eat something that you like and you feel good emotionally or psychologically, but it makes you feel bad physically. And that's something you want to note in your journal too, because a contradiction like that is a clue, about things you need to look at and what you need to focus on when you want to do it. Now, once you've taken this important step, if you're going to take a gradual approach, you're going to want to pay attention to what the different sweeteners that are out there on the market that you could use as an alternative to regular sugar. Okay. So first off, I have to say, ditch the artificial sweeteners. They come with a whole host of other problems. They present a whole host of other health problems, not the least of which is tricking your body into thinking that they're sugar molecules. And when that happens, it triggers an insulin response. So no, we're not going to go there. The whole point of getting off of sugar is to avoid mucking up your insulin response and mucking up your hormones. Okay, one of the main points of doing that. So the first thing you want to do when you're looking at a sweetener is look at the impact of using it and how it affects your blood sugar level. And the best way you can do that is to find out what its glycemic index score is. Let me put this in here. Let me do that. Here it is. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. Glycemic, and you can Google this. There are charts. There's all different ways you can find this. You'll find it in pretty much almost any cookbook or diet book that you have. And so the best way to do it is to find out what the GI scores for the sweetener you want to use or that you prefer to use and compare it to the GI score of white sugar. So white sugar score is 68. And by the way, what a glycemic index score really does is just measures how fast carbohydrates are converted into glucose in your system. The higher the number in the index, the faster the conversion. So you always want to go lower. So clearly if white sugar, regular sugar is 68, you want to go below that. So here are some numbers just by way of example. Honey is 70. Maple syrup is around 55. High fructose corn syrup, which is one of the most damaging processed sugars and artificial, that's used in a lot of food, that's above 90, just above 90. Okay, so it's higher than white sugar. And then palm sugar and coconut sugar, which are kind of maybe lesser known because you won't find those widely available in commercial supermarkets. You have to go to a natural grocer to find that. Those are 35. So that's almost half the GI score for sugar, for regular sugars at 35. Agave nectar is another one that's popular because it has a very low glycemic index, 15. However, I have to give a word of warning about it. I was really excited about agave when it first came out. I discovered it about, I don't know, maybe like 15 years ago. I thought, oh, this is cool. It's natural. It's super sweet, so you don't need to use a whole lot of it. And it really gained in popularity. But the facts and the truth about it are starting to come around. The truth about it is it's not really healthy at all because even though it has a low GI score, it turns out that it's made almost entirely of fructose, which is the single most damaging form of sugar. So apparently it has the highest fructose content of any commercial sweetener on the market, which puts it on the par with high fructose corn syrup. So sorry to disappoint you, natural people who are already on the natural eating bandwagon. If you've been using agave, I would suggest that you just cut it out. I stopped using it at maybe about 5 years ago. Not that I use very much of it to begin with. I would much rather use, a little bit of raw organic honey to sweeten something than to use the agave. But again, it's all about quantity and balance. Okay. So as you experiment with all these different sweeteners, you'll identify which ones satisfy you without being too overly sweet. Because as you take out white sugar, your craving for sweet will also start to diminish. And so you won't want stuff that's super sweet anyway. Okay, that's a sort of an end outcome of doing that, of going cold turkey for sure. And even if you do it gradually, it just takes longer. Now, you may have heard me say it before, but there are at least 60 different names for sugar. So make sure that your alternative sweetener of choice isn't just another form of white sugar. Like evaporated cane juices, you see that a lot on ingredient panels. That's just another form of sugar, white sugar. And even brown sugar. I used to think brown sugar was healthier because it was brown. And I used to use that a lot for baking and that sort of thing. But brown sugar is really just another variant of white sugar, and it has a GI score of 64. So it's not great. And by the way, I also go into great detail about all of this on my healthy eating course, as well as I show you how to retrain your taste buds by experimenting with different taste combinations that include sweet, but are mixed so that you're actually cutting the amount of sweet and introducing other health benefits as well. If you'd like to know more about that, by the way, excuse me, join me tomorrow, Thursday, at 5 p.m. Pacific for my free masterclass. Is your diet slowly killing you, or is it just keeping you tired and overweight? And you can register for that by going here, www.eathealthybasics.com/register. I'm going to be blowing the lid off of a lot of what you've been told and taught about nutrition and diet, and I think you'll find it really interesting and valuable if you find the information that I'm sharing with you so far. So join me there if you can. I'd like to see you. Love to see you there, actually. So let's talk about the pros and cons of sweeteners, okay? Not all natural sweeteners are healthy, and they're not all created equal. Well, as I just pointed out with agave nectar is a perfect example of a sweetener that has a low GI but is actually not very good for you and has no nutritional value. So ideally, you want to go for a sweetener that has a lower GI score and also has some nutritive benefit. So molasses, for example, and maple syrup, while they're not super low in GI, they're very high in mineral and antioxidant content. So there's a little bit of a balance there. If you're using that, you're probably not going to use them in excess because generally speaking, they're not kind of suitable as a general purpose sweetener. You can't use it in everything, okay? But it's something to look at and put it in the mix. Stevia is really touted as the best. It has added health benefits, 0 calories, and a GI score of 0. Only downside with stevia is it can sometimes leave a little bit of a strange aftertaste, a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. It's not one of my favorites as sweeteners go, but then again, I don't use sweeteners very often. Sugar alcohols like erythritol, let me spell that for you because that is a tricky one. Erythritol and xylitol those are sugar alcohols, and they're very low in calories, and they actually also have dental health benefits. So if you don't have great dental health, which has been the case for me in recent years, um, those can be good too, but just be aware that if you overuse them, it can have an laxative effect. Maybe that's not the best thing. So erythritol and stevia are basically the ones that are being recommended for sweetening your beverages, coffee and your tea. And then brown rice syrup and coconut sugar are recommended for baking. Now, brown rice syrup is liquid, so it's not really, you can't really go spoon for spoon measure, comparison with sugar in a recipe. But with coconut sugar, you can go spoon for spoon, substitute for white sugar. And remember, as I mentioned, it has a GI score of 35, so it's half the GI of regular sugar. Has a little bit of a mapley kind of taste. And one other sweetener that you may or may not be aware of, it's called, I'm going to put it up here on the screen too, Lo Han Guo, also known as monk fruit extract. Okay. This is becoming more and more popular as a sweetener in healthier natural foods. It is similar to stevia. Both of them are, believe it or not, 250 to 300 times as sweet as sugar, which means you don't really need to use a whole lot of them to get that sweetness. They have 0 calories and a GI score of 0. Okay, so that's another one to check out and put into your arsenal. And like I said, they're not all created equal. They have their pros and cons, but frankly, most of them are better than white sugar. So if you're doing the gradual approach, I would just jump on here and start experimenting and taste testing and seeing what you like here, and then kind of gradually taper down. So we talked about your mental preparation. We talked about tracking what you eat. We talked about identifying and getting familiar with a lot of different natural sweeteners and figuring out what is a good fit for you, as well as has a balance between low glycemic and some nutritional benefit. Now, here's something that you may or may not have considered, which to me is the next thing. Make spices your friend. We have so many spices that have so many health benefits that just adding them to your diet in general is a good thing. But here's some ideas and thoughts you may or may not have considered. So turmeric is known for its anti-inflammatory benefits. Ginger is known for its digestive support, helps with digestion and nausea. And cinnamon, did you know that cinnamon actually helps lower your blood sugar? It does. So obviously you could take cinnamon, you could probably even take turmeric as a supplement, but I say, hey, sprinkle it in your food because of the smell. The smell of cinnamon, it invokes positive memories for most of us anyway, of cinnamon cookies and warm cinnamon buns. And it's kind of a sneaky way to fool your brain and your taste buds. You sprinkle the cinnamon in something, and then it kind of creates that feeling of that memory of those sweets. And so it kind of, I've used it and it works really well that way. So you can sprinkle cinnamon in your smoothies. You can sprinkle it on your cereal. You can sprinkle it into yogurt. You could even sprinkle it into ice cream. I wouldn't recommend that though, because ice cream typically has a lot of sugar. You could just play around with it and play around with the amount, but know that is a very beneficial spice. And you can bake with it as well, of course. Now, ginger, of course, spices things up, heats things up. And turmeric, so this is an example of how getting familiar with ethnic food really can help you expand your palate, your taste buds, in simple ways that are beneficial. So for example, and again, like I said, you awaken your senses by smelling it, right? So me being an aromatherapist, the sense of smell plays an important role in things, so you don't want to leave it out. Now, with turmeric, for example, there's a drink that I like to make, and I got this from Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He apparently drinks it every night. I don't drink it every night, but I do drink it on and off. And so basically what you do is you take about a cup, 8 ounces or so of unsweetened almond milk, heat it up on a stove. Then you're going to add like a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of turmeric powder, another half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of organic raw honey, and then a teaspoon of coconut oil, organic virgin coconut oil, right? And you just kind of stir that up until everything is melted down. And sometimes I like to add a little pinch of ginger powder in there to perk it up. But when you're done, you just pour that and you drink that. You have a warm, hearty, sweet tasting health drink, a health beverage that's really soothing. And speaking of coconut, by the way, coconut oil, adding coconut oil or unsweetened coconut flakes to your dish can sweeten things up too. Yeah. Some people don't like coconut, but if you like coconut, that's an excellent way to introduce a healthier, beneficial ingredient into the mix that will create that sense of sweetness without the sugar. Okay. And also, coconut oil has MCT, which is medium chain triglycerides is what that stands for. And those are actually also very helpful in helping you create energy. And so coconut oil is great. I love it. And, here's the deal. When you add spices and fragrant ingredients to awaken your senses and your sense of smell, awakens your senses, your mouth, your nose, it helps you to appreciate food in a way that you don't when you just sort of shovel it down because you're craving something sweet and you're like, oh, here it is, and you eat it really fast. Or, as we mentioned earlier, you're in autopilot mode. Oh, one more spice I wanted to mention is just cardamom. Cardamom is a kind of a nice little thing to add to sweeten things up. I for example, might take a small bowl of plain Greek yogurt, add some sliced bananas to that, sprinkle in a little bit of cinnamon, sprinkle in a little bit of cardamom powder, and then a dash of rose water. Mix that all together, and then you have a kind of a nice tasting sweet dish that doesn't have a lot of sugar, plus you get the probiotics from the yogurt. So that's another example of how you can use spices in that way. So comment comment with the word taste in the comments below if you get what I'm talking about awakening your senses and learning how to appreciate the food that you eat, because you can really smell it and feel it and have a whole sensual experience with it. Now, if you found these tips helpful, I go into this a way more detail in my healthy eating course. Okay, so last but not least, let me go over here. You want to increase your fiber intake. Okay, so fiber helps to slow down the process by which carbohydrates are broken down into sugar. So either you are eating a lot of fiber in your diet in general, and most of us are not eating anywhere near enough. Or what you want to do is, if you're eating sweet treats, make sure that the sweet treat has some fiber in it. Okay, and the same thing goes with foods that are like high carb foods. So here's a general rule of thumb. It's a little secret. I'm going to let you in it. For every 10 grams of carbohydrate that's listed on the ingredient panel, you need to have at least 1 gram of fiber to offset it. And that helps with slow down the process, right? The breakdown process of the carbohydrates. So, for example, if you had something that had like 33 grams of carbohydrates per serving, and it also had 3 grams of fiber in it, then that's pretty good. You always want to go better, obviously, but that's pretty darn good, and it's way better than if you had like 33 grams of carbohydrate. And of course, you want the sugar per serving to be low. If you had 33 grams of high carbohydrate, no fiber, or 1 gram of fiber, and a lot of sugar, that's not good. Okay, so that's one way to look at it. But the other important rule about that is you have to pay attention to the serving size. It's really easy to get bamboozled when you're reading the nutrition facts label. I remember not too long ago, maybe a year or so ago, I was shopping in one of my natural grocery stores that I shop in, and I saw a new product on the shelf. It was an almond milk creamer, like a coffee creamer, and it was the same brand that I buy for the unsweetened almond beverage that I really like, unsweetened almond milk. And so it caught my attention, and I kind of was in a hurry, so I didn't study the ingredients panel all that carefully and the nutrition facts label. I figured out I know this brand, and they're good. They make the unsweetened, and it's good stuff. And I if I recall correctly, I don't even remember exactly how much how many grams of sugar per serving. I think it was like 11 or 12, which is actually a little on the high side for me, because I really now try to get my sugar per serving down under 10 as much as humanly possible. And so I grabbed it and tossed it in the cart, brought it home. And then, of course, as soon as I got home, I was like dying to try it. So I opened it up and I took a sip, and I had to spit it up. It was so disgustingly sweet. It was nauseating. It was disgusting. And I'm like going, what the hell? It didn't look like it had that much sugar. So I pulled the bottle up, and I'm looking at the panel, and the serving size was 1 tablespoon. duh. I think in my mind, I was thinking like, well, for the almond beverages, the serving size is like 8 ounces. So 11 grams for 8 ounces, while still a little on the high side, is not too bad. So I was willing to give it a try just to see if it was something I might use. But 11 grams of sugar and 1 tablespoon, yuck. Ugh, I had to throw it out. It was just way, way too sweet. Couldn't deal with it at all. But so that's the importance of reading a nutrition facts label. And I'm just going to show you a product that as an example. This is a newish product that I discovered. Let's see if you can see that. Oops, this way. I discovered it recently in the natural grocery store. It's called, the brand is Alter Echo, and it's dark chocolate coconut clusters with cherry and almond butter. Ooh, okay. I have to say, this is one of the sweetest, greatest sweet treats I've had in a long, long time. And it's actually pretty healthy if you look at. So I'm going to share the nutrition facts label again. I don't know that you'll be able to see much here. So I'm going to, okay, I'm just going to read it to you. So the total carb per serving here is 10 grams. And by the way, the serving size, they say, is a 1/4 cup, which is about a third. So a third of this bag has 10 grams of carbohydrate, 3 grams of fiber. Okay, so normally it's the other way around. You have like 30 grams of fiber, 30 grams of carb, 3 grams of fiber. So one comes out to 1 gram of fiber for every 10, which is okay. But in this case, we've got 10 grams of carb and 3 grams of fiber. So this is very good. And then how much sugar per serving? You can see that. 6 grams of sugar per serving. Okay, so this is my idea of a healthier sweet treat. Now, I'm not saying you want to eat tons of this and eat it every day, because that's still not going to be good for you. But when you want to indulge in a sweet, this is a great example of a sweet that you can indulge in that has healthy ingredients. It's low in sugar, low in carb, high in fiber. Okay, now granted, it is higher in fat, 13 grams of fat per serving, but that's because of all the coconut and the chocolate that's in here. So again, another thing to think about is the quality of the fat. So that's a whole nother lesson. And it's actually, I go into this a lot more in the healthy eating course as well. But I want to just quickly share with you what the main ingredients here are. It's organic dried coconut flakes, organic 70% dark chocolate, organic tapioca syrup, which is another sweetener, which is middling in terms of, it's just a little higher on the GI scale. But obviously there's not a whole lot in here, because otherwise the amount of sugar per serving would be higher. And then it's organic tapioca flour, water, organic coconut sugar, organic coconut oil, organic dried cherries, organic almond butter, French sea salt, and then vitamin E. And the last thing is a little bit for freshness, monk fruit extract. So many of the ingredients that I shared with you today that could act as healthier sweeteners, alternative sweeteners, are in here. And you know, there's more and more of these products coming out in the market every day. So again, that's just an example. And again, I'm not encouraging you in any way, shape, or form to just keep indulging in sweets, even though they're healthier. This is just to kind of think of it as a stepping stone to help you transition away from unhealthy sugars, and then eventually like lower your sugar intake, you know, per serving. And again, I can't emphasize the importance of being able to not only read, but strategically use a nutrition facts label. It's a critical component in being able to cut back on your sugar consumption, your carbohydrate consumption, and making sure that you're getting healthier doses of things that you need, like protein and fiber, to balance things out. And that's another thing like that we go into in my course. We're going to really learn how to study and strategically use a nutrition facts label, so that you can become a really smart, healthy shopper. And again, if you want to know more about that, join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific for my free master training class called Is Your Diet Slowly Killing You, or Is It Just Keeping You Tired and Overweight? And I'm going to pop the URL to register for that here on the screen in a second. Okay. So register for that and come and join me, because you'll learn a lot, even more than what I've shared with you here today. I'm going to show you what you need to avoid, what kind of foods you need to avoid, and what it is you need to do to really just get started on eating healthy. Not just sugar, but in general. And of course, we'll talk about sugar as well. And I'll also post the registration link in the comments below when we're done. So, okay, let's do a quick recap of what we've covered here today. So we talked about different approaches to cutting back on your sugar consumption. So you're either going to go cold turkey or you're going to do it more gradually. But regardless of which way you choose, the first thing you need to do is become mentally prepared. Right? So you want to be mentally prepared, and you want to dial your mindset in. And obviously, one of the best ways to do that, is first to choose a goal that excites you, a goal and a reason to be in process with this, to take on the challenge, to stick with it. So whether it's losing weight, or getting your energy and your productivity back, being a role model for your kids or your grandkids, or just proving to yourself that you can do it. And then, of course, if you're dealing with health challenges, then knowing that not taking this action means that you're probably just going to keep getting worse over time may in and of itself be enough of a motivation. I don't know, because each and every one of you is different. So only you know what motivates you, truly motivates you. So focus on what motivates you. Okay. And then, of course, the flip side of that is you also have to sort of check in with yourself on what might get in the way and stop you from moving forward with this. And that's kind of about doing some soul searching and deeper inquiry into what is the hidden benefit that you're getting right now from engaging in a bad habit or a behavior that you want to change because you know it's bad for you, right? And a lot of times that's what sabotages most people's efforts to get rid of kill a bad habit, replace it with a better one. There's other deeper stuff going on, and you kind of need to connect with that to make sure that that's not what's getting in the way of you being able to move onto a healthy track and get healthy and stay healthy. So that was one, mental preparation. Number two, we talked about tracking what you eat, keeping a food journal, because of how the value of that is it helps you to see things that you can't see or are unable, unwilling to see about yourself, right? It helps you to key into bad habits and things that you're taking for granted or not, or kind of dismissing as not really that important. And just in the process of creating that awareness can actually help you to kick the habit. Okay, so I can't recommend it highly enough. You want to track what you're eating, what time of day it is, how you feel when you're eating it or after you eat it, both physically and mentally, emotionally, physiologically, and then review it, at the end of each week, for example, review it and highlight things that stand out for you and see if there's clues there that can help you take this even further. Okay, so that was number two. Number three is learning more about alternative sweeteners, healthier natural sweeteners, avoid artificial sweeteners. And the best way to pick a sweetener is to find out what its glycemic index score is, the GI score, and compare it to sugar. So you know if what you're stepping into is worse or better. Obviously, you want to go better, which is lower, because the glycemic index is really just a way of measuring how fast carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. The higher the number, the faster the conversion. So you want to go low. White sugar has a GI score of 68, so whatever you switch to should be lower. Now, not all natural sweeteners are created equal. Some have low glycemic, but not any nutritional or nutritive benefits. And in some cases, as is the case, unfortunately, with Agave Nectar, has a very low glycemic score. I think it's about 15. However, it is made mostly of fructose, and fructose has been identified as the most harmful sugar that you can ingest. And so, technically speaking, it's been equated with high fructose corn syrup, which is the primary primarily processed sugar that you'll find in most packaged and processed foods. And that has a GI score of just over 90, as a way of comparison compared to sugar. The other thing is make sure you're not substituting one form of sugar for another form of the same sugar, right? So brown sugar, for example, looks like it might be healthier. It's really not. It has a GI score of 64. It's very similar to white sugar, just by way of example. And then, as I've mentioned in previous sessions, and I mentioned it earlier, there are at least 60 different names for white sugar or variations of sugar and processed sugar. So getting familiar with those is also an important thing that you need to do in order to be able to differentiate. So you'll have to experiment with different natural sweeteners to find out what's going to work for you and, you know, what's best for which application, because not everything that you use to sweeten your beverage can also be used for baking and such. But like I said, I think you can just kind of keep moving to cutting back. And in support of being able to do that, we talked about how you make spices your friend, because spices and other ingredients, like things like coconut oil and unsweetened coconut flakes, rose water, or flower, you know, orange blossom water, all of these things can add flavors that either mimic or create a sort of an experience of sweetness without the added sugar, and many of them actually have added health benefits. So yes, I'm talking about like turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory properties, ginger, which helps you with your digestion, cinnamon, which actually lowers your blood sugar, and cardamom were among many of the ones that I mentioned. And last but not least, increase your fiber intake and learn how to read and use nutrition facts labels, okay? So again, a fiber helps to offset the process of too much sugar. So when your body's breaking carb down into sugar, the more fiber is present and available, the slower that process goes, and the less likely it is to trigger an insulin response, which again is one of the things we're aiming for by cutting out the sweets. Again, I mentioned the nutrition facts label and how to read it. This is one of the many things we cover in great detail in my healthy eating course. And if you're interested in learning more, join me tomorrow for my free masterclass, Is Your Diet Slowly Killing You or Just Keeping You Tired and Overweight? And I've got the link up here on the screen, and I'm going to type it in the comments when we're done. And I hope you found this information valuable. I hope you'll take my challenge to give it a try one way or the other, or at least get started. And again, if you want more information, tune into the training tomorrow, and I look forward to seeing you here at some point in the future. Either way, until next time, be well. Bye, everyone.